All right, welcome, ladies. So glad you are back for another episode of Women of Impact, Insights from Inspirational Women. And I have the privilege to sit here and have a conversation with a new friend, Michelle Renee. And Michelle and I got a chance to get to know each other a little bit a few weeks ago at an event that we were at. And when she shared her story, I was so impacted and inspired by her journey, by the resiliency, the determination, the grit, and the grace that she's been able to just go through and overcome some incredible challenges, but turn that into something beautiful and something now that really is a gift to so many others. So welcome, Michelle. I'm so glad you're here. I really appreciate you just taking your time to have a conversation and share your story with the ladies here who are watching.
I'm excited to be here. I really appreciate the opportunity. This is going to be fun.
Yeah. Well, before we dive into dive deep, because we're going to go deep a little bit today, I would love for the ladies just to get to know a little bit about you. What are you doing these days? What are you up to?
Oh man, I am planning my daughter's wedding has really sort of taken over a big chunk of my time. So that's been really fun. I've been really, having a blast doing that, planning her wedding, really launching a healing community called So Wide Open that I'm very excited about. And, working for me is usually a lot of travel. Right now it's quiet. So it's been a really nice time for me this past month to sort of reground, regroup, reset, recharge, which is so important for us to take that time instead of going, oh my gosh, business is slow. What am I going to do? I go, okay, what is this time meant for me to do? How am I meant to spend this time? What can I do that is really productive and purposeful with this time? So it's been a really, really, really nice change of pace for me this month. That is not going to last long, so I'm kind of relishing in that. And after the wedding, I think things are just gonna, keep climbing, keep soaring.
Yeah, such a great perspective. I know oftentimes when we get in these gray areas, slow areas within our businesses or in life, we kind of feel like we're in the twilight zone. What do we do with ourselves? Should I be doing more? What am I doing wrong? But really, it's a great time to sit back, pause for a minute and reflect and follow those ebbs and flows and not maybe try to make things happen because it feels like, what are we not doing that we're supposed to be?
Yeah.
And how important that is as well than just continuing to plow forward regardless of, what we intuitively know and what actually probably needs to be done. And that's maybe to take a pause and to reflect and to make sure we're in alignment and going in the direction that we see the future of our vision for ourselves, our businesses.
Well, and I think it's important to be self-aware enough to say, okay, I'm starting to feel myself hitting the panic button, and be aware that, oh, I might be going into this panic state. How do I stop myself from letting this panic state take over? And once we go down that sort of rabbit hole of panic when things are slow and we're like, oh my gosh, and there's that, that uncertainty instead of fighting it and spiraling, it's really important to sort of embrace that and go, okay, I feel a little uncertainty. Things are a little bit slow right now. I can feel that I'm leaning towards panic, but bring yourself back to center and really start to ask yourself the questions around, what am I meant to do at this time? What's going to be really healthy and productive for me emotionally, spiritually, physically, all of those kinds of things, and really steer clear of getting sort of trapped in that panic state. So that's kind of where I set my intention when things are starting to slow down and I feel myself starting to maybe panic a little bit, which I know every single person out there is going to be able to relate to that. But how we react to that panic is really important.
Yes. Oh, such a great point. And, our bodies feel it. And so sometimes even sensing it in our bodies allows us to recognize, oh, I'm in this state. And when we're in that panic mode, our bodies begin to utilize all of our resources to address that panic. Okay, you need to survive right now. And so rather than utilizing our energy and our resources to create, we're using them to survive this moment. And so recognizing, okay, like you said, I'm in this moment of panic. What do I need to do to release that energy, open myself, my heart up to what's actually going on here so that I can continue to create and expand, and, just really tapping into that. I resonate so much with what you said. You're
Yeah.
so
And
spot
it's
on.
funny you mentioned the sort of opening up. I use this analogy all the time. I just talked to somebody a couple of days ago about this exact thing. And one of the biggest things that I learned, gifts, like you would say, that I've really taken away from all of the challenges in my life, including my childhood trauma, the kidnapping and hostage situation, everything that happened, with my marriage even, and the things that happened with my daughter's MS diagnosis. There's been a lot of times in my life where you feel like you're just needing to hang on to this anger or that survival mode, and you're gripping to it and you're clinging to it so tightly. But when you look at the analogy of what happens when you're hanging on to something and you're gripping something, you can't expand, you contract. You have to contract if you're holding on to something, including anger, including shame, including guilt, including all these other things. As long as you're hanging on to those, it's impossible to expand. In order to open up and allow yourself to let those things sort of fall away and open up in a way that's going to allow other things, more positive things, to come into your life, the gifts, the lessons, the messages, all the gems that we can pick up from, no matter what's happened to us, there's always those nuggets, right? There's always those gems, those jewels within, even tragedy and trauma that we can take forward with us. But we can't pick anything else up if we're gripping onto something else. We have to open up and expand in order to move forward in a really positive way. So I'm a huge, huge believer in that.
Girl, you are speaking right to my heart right now. Exactly what I needed to hear. I love it. I love it. Oh gosh. Now I want to kind of back up just a couple steps here. You had mentioned some of the things that you had to go through on your journey, and some of the things that were trauma in your life, growing up in your household, and the being kidnapped and held hostage, and then your daughter's MS diagnosis, all of those things. And I know that's part of what's created your gems and gifts that you have now to offer to so many people, that inspiration, that hope, to no matter what faces you, that you can still rise and overcome and be that inspiration, and create such a beautiful experience, not only for yourself but for others to see as possible for themselves. Now, would you share for these ladies who may not know a little bit about your journey? Ladies, Michelle has, written an incredible book, and has actually had a couple of movies documented around some of her experiences in her life, and she's overcome some incredible things that have just shown her resiliency and her spirit to just keep overcoming and rising up. And so, Michelle, would you just start from a little bit, briefly, just, touching on maybe some of how you grew up, and then what led into some things with, being a single mom. And
so I grew up in a very, a really violent home, and it was, a lot of rage and a lot of control, a lot of fear in that. And talk about uncertainty. It was always a lot of uncertainty with 7 kids and not a lot of money. And are the lights going to be on or not on? Am I going to be able to flush the toilet? Am I not going to be able to flush the toilet or take a shower today? Am I going to have to shower at the neighbors or friends? I mean, I grew up with a lot of uncertainty and fear and violence. I ran away when I was 15 years old. I really needed to. I knew that I wanted to just be out of that environment. And I ran away at 15. I was pretty wild for a while. I went a little crazy. I had a great time. I wouldn't trade it for anything, but I was really wild. And I understand now how people can get trapped in a particular lifestyle that's really, really toxic and unhealthy and filled with drugs and violence and things like that I was, again, listening to this tug in my soul that really has been there, that voice that I really believe we all have, but so many of us just don't listen to it or take action towards that direction. We follow fear instead, or the what feels like an easier path instead. But I've had that call, and I really had that calling when I was 20, and it told me to leave the environment that I was in, that I didn't belong there, and I left, and I didn't have anywhere to go, and I ended up on the street and found a place to live. I really met somebody and said, "Hey, I just need a room for rent. I'm gonna, get a job down at the cafe down the street as a waitress. I'll be able to pay rent in a couple of weeks. Just give me a chance." Sweetheart of a guy, gave me a shot. So I lived in this room with with a bunk bed in it. And there was no one else in the room. It was just me in a room with a bunk bed. And I was on the bottom bunk. And I ended up staying there for a while and really deciding that I wanted to go into dental assisting. I ended up taking a dental assisting class. And then I ended up taking a CNA class, because I was, dental assisting was awful. So I ended up doing those things, and I really I wasn't cut out for those jobs at all. And I eventually met my husband, got married, started a part-time bank teller position, and worked my way up in the banking industry for 13 years to become an assistant VP at Bank of America and running branches. And during that 13 years, my husband chose other paths, and I became a single mother in that time. And he eventually lost his life to drugs and alcohol. And I was on my own with my daughter from almost the time she was born. Soon after she was born, I didn't want to keep her around anybody who was making those kinds of choices in their life. And it was just me and her against the world. Fast forward 13 years, we were stalked by 3 men and a woman who stalked us for 2 months and planned a really horrific home invasion attack and kidnapping and hostage situation. And their goal was to force me to rob the bank, or they were going to murder us. And they took my daughter from me, and they strapped us with what they told us was dynamite, and forced me to rob the bank. And the aftermath of that was an extremely dark period for us that I went through. The trauma, the PTSD really compounded the trauma that I went through as a child, and the complex trauma that happened, and that really opened the door and really blew the door wide open to my childhood that I never really dealt with. So I ended up in Alaska, and my book, 9 Days, my memoir, 9 Days, really depicts and chronicles this entire journey to Alaska on the road by myself to get back to my daughter after I had taken her up there and brought her to her grandmother's and got her to safety and came back. And I got that call to follow this calling to just go to Alaska on my own. I was scared to death. I was arguing, going with God, universe, and whatever you want, divine, saying, no way, I'm not doing this. And I ended up saying, I need to trust this. And I did. And it was the most healing, incredible journey that I could have possibly embarked on. And after the 9 days, the trial happened, everything happened. I ended up just starting to write like crazy. And my first book was the true crime that became a Lifetime movie. And I started a nonprofit that was really doing well called Rock to Stop Violence. And in the midst of that taking off, my daughter ended up collapsing and being diagnosed with multiple sclerosis and becoming blind and paralyzed on half of her body. And 2.5 years, I had to stop everything I was doing and just become her caregiver and be there with her literally every brand new step of the way, learning to walk again, feed herself again, talk again, all that stuff. And when she finally was to a place where she could take care of herself again, I thought to myself, I want to do something that I'm in love with. I want to do something and need to do something where my schedule is going to be flexible enough where I can be there for her whenever she needs me. And so I launched my company, Verb Media Group. I taught myself every possible thing I could know and learn and absorb about videography and photography. And I just set out on my own again with a camera and just said to one of my old clients, I said, just give me a shot. with this camera, and they did, and it really has turned into this beautiful journey of building a company from a solopreneur into a boutique agency that's a content creation agency primarily focused on video services and podcast and event videography and photography and lifestyle entrepreneur type content for people. And now here I am today, and that really began when I saw a movie with Clint Eastwood when he was a photographer for National Geographic called Bridges, Madison County. I was in love with that, with what he did for a living in that movie. I sat there staring at it going, that's what I'm meant to do. I'm meant to do what he's doing in this movie. So it was really that sort of dream so long ago watching that movie that has come to fruition in so many ways that and it didn't just happen, you know, sitting around waiting for it to happen. It really happened because I was so committed to taking action towards those dreams and those goals and those things that I wanted to do, and continuing to show my daughter that we could build a life that was filled with happiness again, and we didn't have to stay stuck in, you know, this victim state, or in this pain state, or in this anger or resentment or any of those things, that we could really truly heal forward and design the life that we wanted to live without all of those things. And that was my goal, and that is honestly where we are today.
Wow, incredible. And what I'm hearing you say is that there were some pivotal moments in your life where you had this nudge in your spirit, in your heart, that you knew that something had to change, something needed to be different, and that you were committed to taking that action so that you can get to those places of healing, to the places that you saw to help provide for your daughter and to create the things that you knew you were purposed for. And so you could have stayed and felt sorry for yourself and stayed in the deep, dark places, but you chose to take action on those promptings, on those nudges, on the inspirations that helped you to now be able to do what you do so beautifully. And again, like I said, be a gift to so many others through, you know, overcoming those challenges and those things that could have been so detrimental and keeping you in a place that could be dark. But you said, no, that's not meant for me. I'm made for so much more. And having your daughter to be able to see that as an example too is so incredible. And so for the ladies that may be listening today, what might you say to them who might feel that they are in a dark place of hopelessness? They've experienced some things that have been very traumatic, they've felt desperate. Maybe they feel these little nudges, but they're just not sure. They have doubt if they're even hearing the right thing, or they just feel stuck. What might you say to these ladies to be in a position like that?
Yeah, I mean, I would say that the first thing you need to do is really begin to believe in yourself again. You need to understand that this event that happened to you does not define you. It is the trauma is the response to an event or response to a situation. My response to the kidnapping, or my response to the childhood abuse that I endured growing up, it does not define me. It was a part of my life. It was something that I experienced, but what can I do to make sure that I am not allowing that experience to define my existence, my entire existence? And that is really where I feel people get stuck. They believe that this thing that happened to them, or a lot of people, in my case, it could have been the thing that I did because of the wounded place that I was in. I was making decisions from a wounded place. I was doing drugs. I was, you know, having sex with different men. I was a stripper. I was doing all of these things from a really wounded place. And I can say those things now without any shame whatsoever or any guilt whatsoever, because I understand and I embrace the fact that I made those decisions from a very unhealed, wounded place. And those things do not define me. I am no longer in that place anymore. So the behaviors and the decisions and the things that we were doing from that place no longer fit where we are today. If you decide, hey, I don't need these coping mechanisms anymore. I don't need to numb out. I don't need to drink a bottle of wine every night. I don't need to do all of these things anymore because I am no longer in this particular situation. The event is no longer happening to me. I am now in a place where I'm harming myself. I am choosing to self-sabotage. I am choosing to harm myself because the event itself is over. So getting to the point where you understand that you're not in that place anymore and that it's time for you, and allow yourself, give yourself permission to say, I'm not going to allow myself to be stuck here anymore. I am going to get to know this new, better self that I know I'm ready to become. And asking yourself the right questions is the next big thing. So many people, they get stuck in what's called, I'll be doing my podcast actually on this right after I finish here, but I call it the why me trap. And people ask themselves, why me? Why me? That asking yourself that will keep you so stuck, like so stuck. You can never get unsnared from this trap as long as you keep asking yourself that question. That you might never know the answer to that. You've got to swap out why me for what now? What now? What can I do now to propel myself forward? What can I take forward with me from this situation that can help me grow, that can help me have more gratitude, that can help me live more in the moment, that can help me appreciate the time that I have left here even more than ever before? There are so many other questions that you can be asking yourselves besides why me. Take that completely out of your vocabulary and begin to ask yourselves questions that are literally going to help you, what we just talked about, expand and propel you forward versus keeping you stuck in such a trap.
Yeah. What now? What a powerful question, and what a great replacement to why me.
Yeah.
And it's so important, the words that we choose to speak over ourselves, and so important to call ourselves up into that version of ourselves that we see of who we're becoming, that woman that we want to step into. And so I like to encourage women, if you don't have that vision, you haven't really kind of take the time to think about, like, who is that woman I want to become? What do I see her doing 1 year, 5 years, 10 years down the road, tomorrow even?
Yeah.
Define what that looks like. Choose the words that are meaningful and impactful, and start to envision yourself stepping into that version of yourself and calling yourself up and towards those things. And it takes practice. I think I had to practice a lot of like switching those
Every
words
day.
out.
It's every day. It doesn't stop.
It is every day.
Self-awareness
So
happens all the way through our entire life, every single day. It's like, you've got to be really committed to it every single day. And I can tell you, it's, there are some days that are a lot easier than other days. I'll tell you that.
yes, so true. And the importance of having a powerful and supportive community behind you, I think, is really important as well. Someone or some buddies that you can link arms with and say, I got you, girl. I'm with you. I'll help hold your hair back when you're feeling messy, but I'm also going to help like cheer you on when you reach those milestones and victories in your life that I know you've worked so hard to accomplish. And I think that is such a key factor, is knowing that we have people in our corner, and that there are people who love us and see us and understand and want the best for us, just as much as we desire to have those things for ourselves. So connecting to those in your life that can be that cheerleader, can link those arms and give you wind beneath your wings to help you to keep going on those days you don't feel like, to where it's really hard and what am I doing again? Please remind me.
Who am I? Why am I doing this? Whose idea was this? I do want to touch on that though. This is another key point too. It's so key to have those cheerleaders. It's so key to have those people that hold our hair back. It's really, really important to have those things. It is also equally important to have the people in our lives who are going to spit the truth right at us. They're not going to tell us what we want to hear. Sometimes the truth really can be painful. It can feel like a dagger, but we want the people in our lives who are going to be very, very honest with us. I'll give you an example. I had a woman just recently, a really good friend of mine, that just went through a breakup after 4.5 years. And after listening to her for you know, several weeks talking about the situation and him not responding to her after she sent a very nice text because she wanted to wrap a pretty little bow around this breakup, which is great, fine, if you want to do that, but he never responded to that. And he recently was spotted with somebody else at one of their favorite restaurants. And she's just going after this, saying things about this woman that aren't very nice, even though she doesn't know this woman. She's never met this woman. And I stopped her in her tracks and I was very honest with her. And I said, I'm all about women supporting women. You don't know this woman. You need to keep her out of this. You need to keep your focus of how you're feeling towards this person, only towards this person. She doesn't know anything about your relationship. She is not involved whatsoever. And let's also keep in mind that his behavior right now is really telling you that he's done. He's done. He might be relieved that you walked out. He might be relieved that it's over. Sometimes you have to really be very, very honest and really truthful and authentic with the people in your life that are hurting. Sometimes it's not always about just being the wind beneath their wings or being their cheerleader or being the rah person. Sometimes the rawness needs to be raw honesty and understand that the person is telling you this out of love, out of a place of not wanting you to be stuck, because as long as you're complaining about this person and you're continuing to go down this rabbit hole and you're stalking their Facebook and you're doing all of these things and you're talking about the same thing over and over and over, hoping for a different conversation, at some point your friend, if they're your true friend, they're going to stop listening and stop you and say, you know what? Let me give it to you straight here. So let's have some, let's be okay with understanding that somebody in the people in our circle also need to be the people that are going to be straight shooters with you. That's huge.
Yeah, so true. And when we kind of take those Band-Aids off, have that friend that said, let me do that for you. Rip that Band-Aid off. That's when the wound can really start to heal because it's been exposed. And now you can clean it. You can put the salve on it. You can put whatever it is that it needs so that it's no longer bothering you. You want to pick at it and, keep opening up that, pick that scab off. It allows it to really begin that healing process. And so having those people in our lives that can speak into our lives and show us those places that maybe we need to pull that Band-Aid off and, address that wound, quit picking the scab, but nurture it.
Yeah, we don't always just need the yes person around us. We don't always just need the yes people that are just trying to appease us and walk on eggshells around our trauma, and trying to, not say the wrong thing or not. You've got to have those people in your life, and usually they're few and far between, that can really, really be honest with you and have honest, vulnerable, deeply authentic conversations with you, and not the people that are just, afraid to tell you something that might be painful for you to hear, but might also be something that you desperately need to hear.
Yeah. Well, Michelle, this has been awesome. And talking about, honesty and, having people speak into your life. I know that there's many ways that you are able to just kind of share your perspective in an honest way. And so I want our ladies to find out how they can connect with you more. I know that you've got 9 days there and you have a podcast. Tell us how we can get to know more about what you're doing and dive deeper into your world and hear more of these great, juicy insights and nuggets that we can just walk away with and feel like, oh, I feel full. I wasn't just that was a great conversation. That was fun, cutesy, but my heart is full after that because it was so rich. And so where can our ladies find you so that they can dive in deeper?
Well, they can go to michelle-renee.com. That is my website. I'm very active on social media. You can find me at _Michelle_Renee_ on Instagram. I'm very active there. I'm active on TikTok. Those are the best ways to get in touch with me and just connect with me. I love it when people connect with me. My podcast is Soul Wide Open. I really inspire people to live with their soul wide open through having conversations that are purpose focused, that are very much about mindset, that are about self-awareness, that are very much about healing. And that is what the podcast is all about, and building that healing community and really inspiring people to live a life no matter what they've survived with their soul wide open. I also have a private Facebook group for Soul Wide Open that I just launched. So if you want to jump on over onto Facebook and join the Soul Wide Open Facebook group, please feel free to do so. I would love to see you over there. Ask lots of questions, comments on everything. I'm happy to, I always answer my DMs and everything myself. So yeah, I'd be happy to connect with y'all. I hope to see you on my social or tune into the podcast, subscribe, love it, like it, do all the things.
Yes, ladies, please check her out. Check her out on all the things. You will love her. She just has such a gift to just share that authenticity and help you just recognize the importance and the value of living your life with your soul wide open.
Yes.
Incredible.
Yes.
Yeah. Thank you, Michelle. Any last words you would love to just impart to the ladies that are listening?
You know what? It's on my heart to say something to the moms out there, because I'm a single mother, and it's been the greatest joy of my life. And I know any of you ladies out there that are moms and single moms, I know how challenging that can be. But I do want to say, just be very mindful of the way that you're in trauma, and when you're angry, and when you're in that state of resentment or fear, your children are picking up on that. And I learned very early on that the way that I chose to heal was going to impact my daughter more than the crime itself, more than the kidnapping that happened that one night. If I spent years being angry, if I spent years saying how much I hate them and feeding her that, versus the one night that we endured, feeding her all of that would have damaged her and harmed her so much more deeply than the crime and the event and the kidnapping itself. So be mindful of what we're serving up to our children in our own state of woundedness and our own state of pain and anger and resentment and all of those things. And really, set a goal to get yourself to a place where you're really raising your children and helping them to heal forward as much as you're healing forward, and not teaching them to stay stuck and teaching them to be angry and bitter and all of those types of things. So that would be my message to single moms. Just really be mindful of what it is you are serving up to your children in your state of woundedness.
Yeah. And I feel like that message resonates with mamas of little ones to mamas who have big ones that are out of the house, because we're still that example. We are still have watchful eyes on us. And I think that, how we walk through those things can still be very impactful on our kids, whether they're, 5 years old to 25 to 45. We have that opportunity.
From the time they're little until the end of time, they're listening when we don't know they're listening, and they're watching when we don't know they're watching, and they're picking up on things. And, we just need to have a very, very high level of awareness around that.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, thank you, Michelle. This has been amazing. I'm so excited for our ladies to be able just to sit down and just take this time and opportunity to not only hear your words, but use it as a reflection on maybe what is their next step that they can take to step into that healing, to maybe take action on those nudges that they've been feeling but haven't quite listened or have had doubt about it. I hope this inspires them just to take that very next step and not worry about all the details yet, but just know that there's a hope and a future, and there's so much for them out there to just receive, and just also be that example and light for others to see as well.
I agree. And thank you so much for having me. You got this, ladies. Thank you again. I hope everybody has a truly, truly blessed day.
Yeah. Thank you, Michelle.